Hey, everybody, welcome to On Authentic Leadership with the Colonel and the Coach. We got some very special guests today. We got the leadership group from Norwich University men's hockey team. It's the captains and the assistant captains, and just I'm going to go around the horn real quick to introduce folks. We got Cooper Bertrand, got Devin Thibodeau, Alex Lewis, Clark Kerner, Johnny Johnson, and you got your hosts Matt Smith and Cam Ellsworth, the Colonel and the Coach. Welcome.
All right, boys. As Colonel Smith said, we're kind of bring you guys in. We're really excited and hopefully going to kind of go through this year. I think we had a very successful year. I know it ended in a little bit of heartbreak, losing in the championship game. But when we look at, where we started, how we started, and then where we got to, both I think on the scoreboard, I think culturally, I look back with a lot of pride. So maybe we could just start at the beginning for you guys all coming back. Coop being a second year guy, Tibbs is and Johnny in your third year, and Clark and Lou, you guys in your senior year. Just kind of what you guys thought on the outset, beginning of the team, beginning of the season. New group coming together.
I was just gonna say that I think the start of the year we kind of all had super high expectations. I know, especially me and Clark being 4 years here. I think we all kind of looked at the team we had coming into this year, and we all kind of thought that this was going to be the year we were gonna, kind of put our foot forward, and we thought we had the best team we've had in a while. And obviously, we had our struggles at the start of the year, but we found a way to kind of get through those as the year went on and really triumph as a team. So yeah, I'll let Clark touch on the rest.
Yeah, I think, like he said, we had a lot of high expectations, I would say, starting the year. We had a great up-and-coming freshman from last year class with a lot of guys that were poised and ready to make an impact. And I think, obviously, we had some bumps in the road, but I think it was partially because those guys stepping into bigger roles, bigger leadership roles, and kind of learning how that all kind of fit into their life on campus and how that was going to be for them. And I think as those guys sort of adjusted and became acclimated to those extended responsibilities, they kind of took off and helped, carry the team to what we achieved later in the year.
Yeah. I would agree. I would say in my shoes, kind of just being a sophomore now, I think I was just really excited to get everything going again. I know I tried not to expect too much. I wanted to come in with an open mind and continue to learn and continue to grow. But I also was really excited about the opportunity to potentially be on the leadership group. And obviously that opportunity came for me. And yeah, I just thought I knew I was going to be able to grow and keep getting better each and every day. And I think that's kind of what our team did as well. I think, like Clark said, everybody was coming into their own. And yeah, we started a little bit slower than expected, but I think everybody just grew and got better and grew closer together. And like you said, Cam, I think it was a very successful year overall.
I got a question for you guys. So obviously a couple returners for next year, and then obviously three folks graduating, Alex, Clark, and Johnny graduating this year. But I guess just for the folks that are going out into the wild, so to speak, if you guys were to sort of hit pause or stop, rewind, what would you recommend to Tibbs and to Coop? Just being that the springtime is this an awesome opportunity to get that focus. And I know that Johnny and Clark, that's what your guys' desires was last year, was to not come back in August timeframe and just be ahead of the power curve. What would you guys say to Tib or Coop or whoever the next folks are that fill in for the leadership group?
For me, I would just say that the biggest thing that I felt and took away from my time here was the best way to lead is just to be yourself. I found the most success in hockey leadership and personal relationship leadership, just being authentic and leading with my heart. And, sometimes it's really hard and you have to have those difficult conversations, but there's other times where leading with your heart means you have to empower somebody else that in theory you feel like you should do yourself, but it's better for the greater good of the group to empower somebody else instead of taking that on yourself.
I think my recommendations would be always try to be growing as a leader. I know that through my experience at Norwich, being able to be on the leadership group for 3 years, I think that I grew a lot through all the experiences, and I had to make, mistakes as a leader in order for me to kind of evolve and become what I would think would be the person that deserved to be the leader of this team. I think that was very important for me. And also, like Johnny said, being yourself, but also, leaning on the other people in the group. Me and Johnny have had conversations about it since the season ended and how much it was great for both of us that we kind of we had the same morals and things we wanted to accomplish, but we had different ways of getting there and different kind of strengths. And so I think that me and him kind of being able to use those strengths and like lean on each other was important for us, and our play on the ice too.
Yeah, I would just say that it's just important, like Clark just mentioned, for Tibbs, Coop, and these future leaders just to recognize what you're good at and kind of stay in your lane and try not to be something you're not. Like Clark was mentioning, Johnny was good at something, Clark was good at some things, and I think that's what kind of made them both great leaders this year and good captains for our team, is they both kind of knew what they were good at, and they stayed in their lane, and they did what they knew they could do good. And just add on, just have fun. I mean, one thing we talk about a lot is just kind of have fun. We're so close to the team, and I know coming in as a freshman, people tell you, the seniors look at you and they say, it goes by really quick, and you don't really think about that until you're in your fourth year and the season is done, and you kind of reflect on it, and you're like, wow, that went really really quick. So just enjoy every moment, and keep having fun every day.
Yeah, before Kim, I know you got a question. Before I get off the stage, I guess Tibbs or Coop, not that you'll never talk to these guys again, but just any parting words for them, just from your perspective as, just being the younger guys in the team and being essentially the junior/assistant captains.
I would just say that in my sort of 3 years here, I've learned to sort of appreciate all their different leadership styles. And I think that they've all been somebody that I've sort of looked up to. I mean, even Johnny in the same sort of class as me. It's been a pleasure to sort of play with them and work with them every day. And I think even touching back onto the first question about the season, like, I think we came out, even though things didn't necessarily go our way in the season, we came out learning like a lot more than just about like wins or losses. So we all sort of grew as humans.
Yeah, I think kind of just building off what Tibbs just said, for me, it didn't even really just start like when I got here for my freshman year. I think having these guys as friends and people that I look up to started on my visit. Johnny and I know Lenny did so much for Heine and I on our visit, and it really made it feel like home for me. And that was a big part of me coming here. Having these three guys as kind of role models, I learned so much from each and every one of them. I think I'm definitely going to take all those things and bring that on to the next group of freshmen for the next 2 years for me, for sure.
So I think we should maybe unpack. We finished last year or the previous season in second place with 13 freshmen, and it was, in general, I thought, a really good year. We ended up getting upset in the playoffs, and we had kind of a end of the year meeting. I think that's when this year started. Lou, I know you were really vocal and had fought some injuries. Why don't we start there?
I mean, yeah, so we kind of, I think it was the last couple of weeks of school while we were still here, and we kind of all met in all the returning players met in the library. And I kind of think we just had a long sit down and chat about just being more open and vocal on everyone's end. So if you had ideas, talk about them. If you saw things that you wanted to change, talk about them. And I think we had a really good, probably hour and a half, 2 hour chat about leadership, whether that was different systems we were going to run, whether that was different things we were going to do in practice. It was kind of a wide range of things we discussed.
I think it was more of a open forum. The culture we created here, everybody is equal, and whether you're a freshman, a senior, have a letter, don't have one, your opinion is just as valid as the next guy. So I think that meeting was really important. We just kind of heard from freshmen, defensemen, forward, whatever, like all ranges of the spectrum. Like we heard everybody's opinion on just about any topic, hockey, leadership, you name it. And we just kind of opened the floor to everybody and just took, even the ideas we didn't necessarily put into play, like word for word or plan for plan, what somebody said, like we still kind of like touched on it. So we made sure everybody felt important and we heard everybody's thoughts.
So I remember we came back, and I think every year everybody's excited, right? You're excited about the group. And somewhere along the way, and as the leader of the program, I would say I'm guilty. But I think as we talked about all the system and all the structure and all the verbiage and we forgot to talk about the work, the effort, and there's like an input part of it. Through our exhibition season, I think I know I was frustrated, but I think something I learned from you guys, and again, the communication piece being important, we all wanted the same thing. And I say both, I'm talking players and coach, but it took us a little while to find a way to communicate and get on the same page. Would that be fair? I don't, if you guys maybe talk about what you remember from that. Because again, we went 1-1 in preseason. We went down to Curry and really we got smacked. And I was frustrated. You guys were frustrated. And I remember my epiphany moment, but what do you guys remember about kind of that starting out, that the first 3-4 weeks?
I think for sure everybody wanted the same thing. And I think we just kind of thought that since we had this whole new kind of program that it was going to come easy. And like you said, we just the effort and the new things just never really aligned in our brains just yet, which for whatever reason we got our butts kicked. And then I think we kind of were able to take a step back and realize, all right, it's not going to be as easy as we think. We're going to have to maybe put this transitional period to rest and just get back to work. So I think recognizing that the work is more important than the system was important for us. And I think we kind of touched on that in practice and in meetings that, all right, we got to get back to work. Like that's what's most important here.
I remember talking about like work and competing and kind of the difference between those two, and how we thought guys were working hard and were tired at the end of the game, but they weren't necessarily competing and giving it their all and having that competitive spirit to the point of our identity and what we wanted to be. And I think part of it was us searching for identity, guys finding out where they kind of fit in here, but also us as a leadership group and coaching staff finding out, trying to define those things, because we were kind of saying stuff and newer guys, younger guys didn't quite know what it meant. So I think it took us to kind of sit down and decide who we wanted to be and what it meant to us to compete and, wear that jersey and have our identity. So I think once we kind of defined those things, it got a lot better.
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of and I remember it was Shooter, Ben Van Watershoot, who was like, I felt like I was working hard. I just didn't compete. And in my brain, a lot of that is the same, but I felt that was my epiphany, that when I was saying work, it wasn't computing to you guys. So it didn't matter what I said, right? It was that I could have the most important thing in the world to say, but it was a valuable lesson I learned about just making sure that you guys were picking it up and that we were all on the same page. And that epiphany moment, speaking to Ben, and we were able to, I thought that was a really big jumping off point. I think we also talked about meetings, and we also did some early morning runs. We also did some skating. We did a lot more than meetings, right? And trying to really establish the common goal of being a great team in mind.
I think what Cam said is that it was correct. We all thought we were working hard, but once he kind of defined that for us, or once I guess Ben Van Watershoot defined that, it kind of clicked. I think it took us a while still to get going, but I think after Christmas we all kind of were finally on the same page. It took a while. We had some early morning stares for right up until Christmas, and I think those early mornings really helped and paid dividends in the future. And I think after Christmas, really where the team took off and where we had a lot of success.
I thought there were some monumental, really important, pivotal moments for us. And one of them happened while we were, running stairs one day, and we talk about the leadership, we talk about empowering, we talk about a lot of things. I don't think it was ever a question of want, right? Guys wanted to do well, and everybody wants to do so well that it's hard to share and it's hard to empower. It's hard to, right, allow. And Colonel Smith, it was your idea. And it was the idea to put these 5 guys, like basically give them reprieve and say for a week, right? They got to pick 5 new guys and let them force those other guys to make decisions, to be in your shoes, to do those things.
I'll speak to this leadership group, and I could pick any one of the guys, but you look to a Clark and a Johnny, guys that are wearing the C's. I mean, they're obviously wearing the C for a reason. And coming from a non-hockey guy, I understand leadership. I understand leading by example. And leadership, like we've talked about, it's in some cases it's lonely at the top, right? It's exhausting. So you have life, you have school, you have hockey, you have whatever, you have everything else, and it's just a lot, right? And then there's the expectations. They don't want to let you down, Cam. I mean, no one wants to let someone down that they respect. And for me, I saw the shift probably in Johnny and Clark the most, just because I can see it through their actions. Don't even have to say anything. And not that the actions and the body language was poor. It's just, you can see sometimes the weight of the world. You can, all the things that we talked about just in the last few moments of wanting to achieve, wanting to avenge the loss, from USM and all that sort of stuff, and knowing what it takes to get there, and knowing the level of effort. And sometimes you just need respite. I can tell you countless times I deployed, and you want to succeed, and you give all your effort in the first week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then you've got 5.5 months to go, and you're like, okay, I got to pace myself, because this is a little bit bonkers, and whatnot. And I think that's the hardest thing, right? Is not necessarily to step away forever, but just to step back and give someone else the opportunity. And just to know that there's guys like Coop and Tibbs and Lou and all the others that are just ready to step in and step up. And so it's not like there's only, two guys that can do it. Sure, there's two guys that epitomize what it means to maintain the captaincy, but arguably there's other guys that are willing to step up. And then also, Cam, at the same time, I saw the weight on your shoulders. On the player coaches, they're just like, I don't know what to do. And not to say that they didn't necessarily know didn't have a plan or a course of action, but it's just an idea. It was just an opportunity to do something different.
Yeah, and I think it was a pivotal moment for us. I think if we go back in my 7 years here at Norwich, there was always a kind of a tradition when I got here of naming captains at the end of the last season through the summer going forward. And I just never did that. I thought it would be stifling. There was the summertime, like, you talk about the time to grow. And so I didn't love that. And last year, with the way the year ended, with the way the group came back, with the way the exit meetings were, it became very clear to me that Johnny and Clark were the two guys that were unanimous. Lou was a big part of that. Lou and I had conversations. So the only time in my 7 years, put that designation at the end of the last year. So it was longer than anybody in any other time. And like you said, you could see it in their actions, how bad they wanted it. And then at the same time, and I would just ask maybe Johnny and Clark to speak to this of how much that not knowing, right? We all do it as humans. We want so badly to succeed, but almost the weight, and you don't even realize it until it's taken off. And so if you could maybe just talk about that week, the revelation of taking that weight off, how that helped, and through your eyes, how that went.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a great idea. Like, in a way, it's kind of like an exercise that's a little bit like succession planning in a way, because we were taking guys that were kind of informal leaders on the team and kind of introducing them to the things that we saw every day. And I guess some of the stuff, like, it's pretty heavy, because like some stuff is hard, and me and Johnny were trying to wear that and shoulder that and kind of hide that from the other people, and just try to encourage them to play good on the ice. And obviously, as players, I think you could tell that it helped me a lot just based on my production after that versus before that. Like, I had these guys approaching me, asking me to take anything off my plate, help me with anything. And then I remember another moment kind of like this where Tibbs, Lou, and Coop pulled me and Johnny aside and said, hey, like, we know like all the stuff you guys are doing. And like, if there's anything, like, please, like, let us know. And we were always trying to delegate to them, but it was just good to see guys, like, they saw what the work it took to kind of be a part of that core leadership group. And then after that, they were so, excited and eager to step up in any way possible.
Yeah, I think he hit it on the head there pretty good. That meeting he's talking about with those three guys, I mean, we've always known that whatever we needed, we could allocate to them and ask them for help. That week was a weird week. Like, I think we had like a couple really hard practices. Like, everybody was kind of angry all the time. And we were about to leave the rink, and they're like, hey, like, can we talk to you guys? It was really, really genuine, really sincere. And, I could feel like, at least for me, like I felt like a weight got dropped off my back when they said it. And that was obviously something I already knew, but it was just hearing it again. I was like, oh my gosh, like, I feel a lot better. So that was a really, really pivotal point I found. And the thing, like, reflecting back on it, that I found that I got the most caught up in was, like, I wanted to win so bad that it didn't matter if I played 2 minutes, 200 minutes, or scored or never scored or anything. It's the only thing I cared about was winning and taking care of the group. And I think at times that was one of my faults at times. And I think these three guys kind of helped me and Clark mitigate that and kind of diminish the bad side of it and just bring out the positive stuff.
Could you also maybe just talk about what you think it did to give that? Johnny, you mentioned earlier, like, hey, we want to have a culture where everybody's voice is important, and those guys coming in, making decisions, and kind of empowering them and giving them trust to, of how important those guys are. And I think we take for granted when we say things, but then actually giving them responsibility, and then just what you maybe saw in those guys away from the rink. But I could argue a lot about what they did on the ice, but just maybe what it did in the locker room, things like that, the kind of the reverberation of it.
Yeah, I think that week in particular, where we had the week off as captains, if you will, I was come back from an injury, so I didn't skate at all. So I was just sitting on the bench watching everything. So I had like a different view than Clark did. So I'll be interested to see what he had to say. But it was funny seeing the like quick frustrations and like little things bothering them that they weren't necessarily accustomed to noticing because they weren't in that role. And then the meetings and the conversations and stuff like that that they've never had to experience in their 3.5 years. And then they had a meeting this day, a conversation, decision. They had to worry about, is this guy doing the drill right? Do I need to correct him? Like stuff like that. I think in the week, those guys you mentioned, those underclassmen, Harv, Sizzle, Heine, those guys, and Fagan, those guys like really got really hungry to be a part of that, and they loved it. And I think honestly, like the week after, when everything went back to quote unquote like normal, I think it kind of gave everybody, not even just those 6 guys, like just the other group, a better perspective on like how many things are talked about, looked at, paid attention to, and like how much is on our plate. Not that it was too much at all, but I think it kind of gave everybody like a whole different perspective and kind of shifted the way some guys acted, to be honest.
Yeah, you saw it the rest of the year through, like when we empowered them that week, they were more vocal throughout the rest of the year, which was obviously huge for us, and it gained them a lot of confidence, and it kind of reminded me like, and we always try to take their inputs into consideration, like any decision that was made with the leadership group. And I would argue that Coop was the most important person in this group, because when we were making decisions, he had the heartbeat of that underclass that was so important to the team, but they didn't, I guess, see all that recognition of their thoughts and opinions. And that week they were able to see how much input they were having on the team.
Coop, could you talk a little bit about what that looked like, and also maybe just the motivation? A guy like Sizzle, that was probably pretty close to the time where I thought his motor really hit high gear, So if you could maybe just talk about the day to day and how that worked with him.
Yeah, for sure. I think kind of like Johnny and Clark kind of touched on, where our culture is about having everybody's voice heard. I think especially my 2 roommates kind of were itching to have their voices heard, maybe even a little bit more than normal. And I think just giving them that opportunity kind of elevated them, not just as people, but as leaders. And I think them being elevated kind of, like Clark said, was like a little bit of a trickle down effect. And I think it kind of flooded into the rest of their kind of time at the rink. I think giving them that opportunity really kind of lit a little bit of a fire, and kept them wanting more. And I think that they really kind of took advantage of that opportunity. And then, like Johnny said, when it went back to quote unquote normal, I think that they never fell back into the position that they were in. I think they continued to be elevated and continued to make sure that their voices were heard. And yeah, I thought they grew a lot from that experience, for sure.
So, and maybe this is, maybe Coop and Tibbs haven't really thought about this yet, but I know Lou, Clark, and Johnny have. But I guess just from my perspective, when I walk into your guys' locker room and I see your stalls and I see your names on the stalls and I see your stuff, and just to see you guys act as a team united, and the leadership that's exuded from this group, both formally and informally, right? Formally is in the role that you serve and the letter that you wear, and the role that you guys serve on the ice. But informally, the sidebar conversations that you guys have with folks on the team. If you guys just rapid fire, just kind of talk about what it means to walk into the locker room, either before or after the music is played and you guys gear up. And I know Clark was probably emotional for you for the last game, and Johnny, and unfortunately I wasn't there, and Lou, but can you guys just talk to that? Because I think a lot of folks don't understand just the dedication and the commitment, especially with hockey, because you guys, it's just such a journey, right? And you guys are, whatever, 23, 24, soon to be 25 years old. And it's just, there's a lot of work that you guys put in, and all of it leads to, a certain moment. If you guys could talk to that just real briefly. Clark, any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like a lot of pride to play for Norwich, and obviously, when you're walking that locker room, like you start to kind of think about things a little bit deeper when you get a little bit older. So, like towards the end, you're grateful every time you get to do that, because you know that pretty much no matter wherever you go next, it's hard to find a group of people that are going to love each other and care for each other and be there for each other quite like that. And then you're thinking about, every time you put on the jersey, there's 10, 15, I don't know, a lot of people that have believed in you to help you even get to this point. And then a lot of sacrifices from people in your life to help you get to that point too.
I think it really starts for us is in August when we all first get to Northfield, and the way we kind of set up our room is that we kind of have our 3 captains, our 5 captains set up the whole room where people are sitting. It's purposely set so we have kind of all 5 of us sitting, different places in the room. We're all sitting beside freshmen on both sides. There's no posses, there's nothing forming around the room. So it really starts there, and I think from there on is where you really build those relationships with guys you don't know as much. I'd originally had 2 freshmen on both sides of me, and obviously I'd love to be sitting beside Clark or beside Johnny, but you build those friendships with people that you don't know yet, and I think that's where that bond really comes in from, and where that empowerment really comes from, and I think that's a really important piece. And then 4 years later, you near the end, and it gets pretty emotional because, like Clark said, you're really grateful for everyone and everything that gave you the opportunity. And obviously it's a bond that a lot of people don't have the chance to have. I'm sure a lot of different sports teams will have great bonds, but I know especially for us, there's not much to do around the town here in Northfield. So it's pretty special going to the rink. We're there for 4 or 5 hours a day, sometimes just hanging out. I know by the end of the year, there's guys going 2 hours before practice just to kick the soccer ball around or just to hang out, just to talk. So it's pretty special.
Yeah, I would just say a lot of pride putting on that jersey and looking around at the guys. It's a weird thing because, everybody says this, but like there isn't a guy who put that jersey on this year that like I wouldn't do anything for. And I know that every guy who put it on feels the same way about me. And that's really special. And just like I don't really know how to put it into words. It's just such a unique thing that I've never felt until I've been here, and I played on a bunch of different teams and different sports and stuff like that. And it's just, it's not just the hockey stuff. It's, hey man, I need to talk about something going on, or, let's go have dinner. I need a break from my girlfriend or whatever. Like anytime, anywhere, somebody had your back, and you always knew like you were never alone. So that was kind of the biggest thing I felt when I walked in the room, put the jersey on. It was just like, everybody had my back and I had theirs. And that was just a, hard thing to put into words.
Yeah. So just not to get all emotional, because we have like 2.5 hours left, but I'm joking. Is it just for me, like, to see, I got to the point where I was referring to you guys as numbers. So I consider that only took me like 4 years to do. So I'm a slow learner, but 18, 20, and 21, I don't know. When I saw you guys on the ice and with the uniforms on, that just meant something to me. And I know that it meant something to you guys, and it meant something to this program, and it absolutely positively meant something to this university and this community. So I know I'm not going to be the only person that's going to miss seeing you guys on the ice for sure. And not to say that I'm involved in any way, shape, or form, but anyone that wears those numbers next year, if they're not living up to the high standards that you guys set, I'll make sure Tibbs and Coop remind them gently of what the standard bearer that you guys were for the last few years. So appreciate it. All right, Cam, back to the timeline. But thank you guys.
When we look at the pivotal moments, I thought as a leader, as a coach, my always goal, the whole reason I met Colonel Smith was just trying to get some kind of accreditation that it's okay to be yourself. And I think you have an idea of like a coach is going to be a yeller, a screamer, a type A, a this or that, whatever. And my belief has always been to like try to give the team, help the culture grow to the point where I can hand it over to you guys. And that if you guys take it, that's when we're really going to catch fire. And that happened this year. I would say right after the Northfield Savings Bank tournament, we played a very good Hamilton team, but again, got kind of smacked. And we were down in the dumps. And I remember just saying, like, the answer is in the room, right? I believed in the room. You guys believed in the room. And I ended up talking to Heine, one of your roommates there, Coop, and he had some ideas, and I trusted in him. I trusted in you guys. That week, we removed my voice, Cam's voice, the assistant, and again, my belief was that the answer is in you guys. And I thought that was a big moment, and that snowball effect started that week. I don't know, Tibbs or Coop, what you guys thought of, or maybe thought we were crazy when we did it. Where that started, where it got to, and kind of your experience through that, kind of how you guys took hold.
Definitely a little crazy in the beginning. I thought that it just showed that you guys as coaches really believed in us. And in the end, I think it brought us all together like closer as a group. We had to like bounce ideas off each other, sort of do a lot of different things with one another and figure out like what was going to work and what wasn't. But I really think it helped us not only in the room building like chemistry, but also on the ice.
Yeah. I think it was definitely a new experience for a lot of guys, not really having the coach kind of in their ear at all times. And I think that really spoke a lot to, like Tibbs said, the belief that you guys had in us, and also the fact that, we're not regular college students. We're all kind of men and a little bit further on in our lives than most. And I think us kind of realizing that and being like, okay, like we're in the deep end, like we're all in this together, and we all have to be rowing the same direction, or else it's not going to work, kind of hit home for a lot of guys. And I think that at the same time, kind of taking a step back and realizing like this isn't going to be forever. And I know for myself, I kind of looked at the seniors and the bond that I had with them, and recognized that, I'm not going to be able to play with these guys forever. So I better go out there and give my best effort every time, because I'm not just playing for myself, but I'm playing for these guys as well. I think a lot of guys kind of had that same feeling, and I think we just built from there, right? I think kind of just playing selfless, and I know it was said a million times. I think it might have been somebody different every time, but do your job so that the guy's job beside you is just that much easier is something huge. And I think we all kind of rallied together using that philosophy of just making sure that you're doing your job to make sure the guy beside you's got the easiest job possible. So
I was going to say, like, just in the context of the question that you asked, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that, like, just the way in which the leadership group and the coaching staff carried themselves, and that it was a culture of listening to understand what the other person was saying, and not being condescending and not screaming, and, not dropping unnecessary F-bombs, and all that sort of stuff. I think, leadership starts at the top, right? And so I just think that these guys know that you did a good job, and they've had a lot of hockey coaches in their lives. I've had no hockey coaches. I know a few, but anyways, I think that I just look at how you carried yourself, how C2 carried himself, how Lenny, Mikey carried themselves, and I think that there's something to be said, to that extent in the leadership role that she served. And I saw that in Clark for the last few years. I saw it in Johnny, Lou, all that sort of stuff. And I think that as we're talking about leadership, and as we're talking about coaching, as we're talking about the hockey culture, I think that if you're to pinpoint or look at a good or even a great program like we had at Norwich over the last several years, I think that just stems from people being in positions and treating each other with dignity and respect. And I saw that from this leadership group do that day in and day out, even when it wasn't easy to do that. And I think that just stems from just, someone, leaders being self-reflective, if you will, and just holding themselves to a higher standard. And, I don't think that can be understated, underscored enough. So anyways, just wanted to get that out there, Cam.
No, I appreciate it. And I also just opened behind the curtain just a little bit more. So basically, we went through this weekly player-led video leadership. Not only did I not speak, but you guys didn't speak either, which was very calculated. And so every week we had a player coach who was forced into injury retirement, working with another player outside of our staff, outside of this leadership group, to evaluate and present to the team on how we can continue to get better. And I think that it takes a lot of trust in each other, not only me to trust you, you guys to trust me. Like Tibbs, you said, it's kind of nuts to start. But once, Clark, that's a good look for that, right? But then you start to learn to trust each other. And now those, Coop, you said, hey, guys are saying it, but it becomes more than words. It becomes emotions. It becomes the reality. It becomes the expectation for each other. And I think it can't be understated. It's hard to let go. It's hard to trust. It's hard to believe in that next guy. And it's hard not to have your hands constantly on the button. And I thought you guys, again, through some different ideas this year, took it and ran with it. So I thought it was pretty cool. Obviously, how far it got us. Another, maybe just for me to talk about, is just the way that you guys, and I can't state this enough, again, Colonel Smith, you guys, I call it the underbelly, but any college team's going to have more than 20 dudes. Most people, the NHL, there's 20 people. Junior hockey, there's 20. And then you get to college and it's 26, 27, 28. We had 30. And so there's a group of people every day sitting in the stands, and the connection that everyone had to the room, to the team, to each other, it's bigger than the coach, the colonel. It's you guys. And this year, due to injury, right? And just, we needed some of those guys late. And all of a sudden, I can think of, for us, we finished second place because we won a game on the road in a place we hadn't won in 5-6 years at Skidmore, and Beaker hadn't played in 5-6 weeks. And I can pat him on the back. Colonel Smith can give him positive reinforcement, but without you guys keeping him going, he doesn't arrive, right? So I don't know if you guys can talk how intentional, I know we've talked about it, but just how intentional you guys were about connecting all corners of that room. And Lou, you brought it up about the leadership and how intentional people were sat, but just the communication, keeping everybody around. And again, that's not an easy thing, right? That's not an easy thing. And not everybody got to be Beaker and score his first goal in the semi. Like, that's the great part of that story. But, if you guys could talk just about how intentional those conversations were, not just with you five, but with the whole group, to keep a group of 30 people moving together.
Yeah, I would just say, like we touched on earlier, like everyone kind of has different leadership styles. And I know we did a lot of things this year and previous years to kind of, like we said, empower other people. And one thing that kind of comes to mind is when you, Cam, asked me to sit on a meeting with Schubert to talk about him. And I know I've had Beaker come up to me. I know Beaker's went up to Johnny. And just when my freshman year, I didn't play every game. So I've talked to him. I talked to other guys about my experience and, how I dealt with it. And obviously it's not easy for some people. It's easier for others. But I think just, really making the point to the people that no one's above others and everyone has a voice. And it really keeps the whole team, keeps all 31 guys engaged, whether that's practice, workouts, whatever it is. Just giving everyone a voice really gives everyone a purpose, even if they don't play every game, are not dressed up every night.
I mean, it's obviously hard. You got 31 guys from 25 or 20 different places that didn't know each other before they came here, and all these different backgrounds, and there's so many different things that come with it. And then when we all arrive, it's like, this is what we got. There's no asking for a trade and like stuff like that. It's just a much different environment than any of us were used to. Kind of to circle back to what Colonel Smith was talking about, I think it all trickles down from the top. With how Cam treats us, and not just us as the leaders, but just everybody. I was never scared to go in his office and tell him I need a stick, or, hey, can I talk to you about this? Like, just the way he treated us like humans. He didn't treat us like, I'm your coach, you play for me. That respect was so much that I could tell him anything I felt like I needed to tell him, whether I thought he'd be mad or not. And I knew he respected me enough to hear what I was saying for what it was worth, not with any emotion, just to hear me out. Back to Beaker, like, kind of what we were talking about earlier with staying true to yourself. And, if something isn't your strong suit, handing it off to somebody else. I didn't really know what to do because when I talked to him the first time, he told me he was too hard on himself and this and that, and I gave him my suggestions, and those didn't work. And he gets taken out of lineup, he gets inserted, he gets taken out, and nobody really knew like what to do. And just through chatting and whatever, we decided like Lou would be the best guy to do this. Like Lou kind of went through something similar his freshman year. Lou handled that and took something off me and Clark, Coop, Tibbs, all of our plates that we didn't really necessarily know how to handle, and made our lives easier. And obviously kept Beaker stringing along, and he scored a pretty big goal for us there at the end.
Yeah, I think as well. I think the idea that Tibbs had with the bells that we used this year, I thought that was huge. Kind of keeping everyone driven and trying to do the most every single day. I know for sure that's something that in the future, any team that I'm on is going to be something that I suggest, because I think that was absolutely huge for our team this year. I think guys that maybe thought they weren't getting exactly the recognition they deserved were being recognized for small things that other guys noticed. And I think that it was really cool that they were presented from player to player. And I think that kind of kept guys honest. I think it held guys accountable, and the guys that really cared, I think they did more than what was the minimum. And I think that was really big for our team as a whole. And I think that honestly brought us a lot of success. Just kind of doing things what nobody's watching. And I think that was just really big for us as a whole, kind of coming together. And I think all the presentations of the bells were really well done and really cool, because sometimes one guy notices it and he's able to present that to the whole team when the rest of the team might have never even known that happened. So.
Hey, I just want to just for our listeners real quick, just because not everyone is doing the video podcast piece, they might just be listening in. So the piece that Cooper Bertrand is talking about is early in the year it was determined that and I'll let Coach talk about answering the bell, but as by way or means of recognition, there was little bell stickers that were created by Coach, and they were given to players for doing something that was deemed exceptional or deemed above the norm, if you will. And just from my perspective, as someone who values just recognizing people for doing what they're doing the job well done. These guys did an amazing job. It wasn't just a good job, great goal. Hey, good job, great assist. It was meaningful, and there was a lot of guys that were just really fired up about it. And I thought you guys did an exceptional job recognizing each other, and then at the same time just being humble in your acceptance of being recognized, because that could obviously go sideways as well. So, anyways, well done. Sorry, Coach.
No, it's a great point, Coop, and again, it stemmed from kind of a little bit aftermath of the first meeting we had in the library the end of the previous year. And Tibbs, it was your idea. It kind of got brought up the chain to me, and maybe you could talk about where the idea started. We can maybe fill in the bell part, but that it was your idea. It wasn't my idea. It wasn't anything I've ever done before. And again, just talking about like kind of laying everything on the table, and I don't have all the answers as a coach. So using you guys and those great ideas and then empowering them and putting them into use or into action was pretty awesome. Bibbs, if you can just talk about where that started.
I was just thinking in the summer when I went home after all the sort of conversations that we had, I was thinking like, how can we continue to motivate each other as a group and continue to push towards success? And I think in the beginning, when I was looking, I'd seen some other teams do it, like football teams, hockey teams, but I think their definition of what the sticker meant was a little bit more rigid, and like there were only certain things that you could do to sort of get these stickers, and maybe not as meaningful as like we like created it to be. So that was my first thought. I was sort of more of that rigid mindset too. But then once I talked to you, or the idea sort of went up to Cam, this idea of like us presenting them to each other and coming up with our own sort of like reasoning as to why we were giving them out was brought up. And I thought that sort of worked a lot better with what we were trying to like accomplish as a group. And in the end, yeah, I think it worked out great, and it gave guys a lot of confidence in the year, where maybe at points where they weren't feeling the most confident, like this little sort of sticker was able to like bring them up. And
Yeah, and so what we did was, in my experience, I've always tried to, as a head coach, kind of set the course, but it's not that hard, to be honest, right? We all want to win. We want to win at the end of the year, and finding a way to verbalize that is what I always thought. But what each team was remembered for, I wanted to lay that at their feet. I didn't want it to be about me, because again, if they thought, or if they all believed that the best way to get there was X and I thought it was Y, I really never thought that those two things were too far apart. And I would much rather call it X and go. And so unfortunately, we had a player that right around the time last year of that meeting, right around the time of that meeting, got diagnosed with cancer. And about the time we came back, and it was very early, we canceled, I believe, a practice, correct? And all went and met him at the hospital when he was deemed cancer free or finished his chemo. And so that idea, and there was some, Johnny, we can talk very uncomfortable moments about that, but then that moved into answering the bell and being a bigger concept of a team, like showing up. And we talked to the player, we talked to his family to make sure that they were okay with it. And we used that as a symbol, again, with a very open definition, because to Coop's point, to Devin's point, Matt, to your point, what's important to one person, or what goes unnoticed to one and what goes noticed to the other, and you don't realize how important that one thing could be to that one person. And not only did it took a little while to take hold, right? Even for us, like who gets them. And we talked about having, if you block a shot, or if you win a back check, or you win but we ended up going, like, basically making an impact in somebody's life, on or off the ice. And like you said, we could present them. Jess had them, coaches had them, at any time and anywhere, on the road, prior to practice, in the room. And, their only rule was somebody had to say why. It wasn't just this blanket showing up. You had to recognize the person. It was an awesome idea, Tibbs. I would encourage anybody to take that, put it in their own mold, because who doesn't like being told something that they're good at, right? Who doesn't like being singled out for the positives? And in life and the world right now, everybody gets singled out for negatives. So, like, having a peer stand up in front of a group, whether it's a small group or a big group, and say, hey, there you go. Thank you. You did a great job. I'm proud of you. Where's the negative in that? Again, that was an idea by Devin. It morphed. We made it our own. But Coop, to your point, I thought it was massive. So as we kind of wrap up here, we fell short of our ultimate goal, right? We ended up losing in the finals. And at the same time, it's been mentioned about the relationships, the people, the way we treated each other, the way you guys treat each other, the way you guys treat other people. I don't think it doesn't get missed, right? And I think it is a prideful thing that I was a part of your lives, and I'm thankful for that. And just wanted to publicly, obviously my life took a pretty big turn, and you guys are like the last team that I coached, and I just wanted to, like, say thank you. I love you guys, and I genuinely mean that. The amount of time and energy and effort, and it starts so many years ago, recruiting, phone calls, video calls, getting you here, and then all of these things. And I don't think that people, and again, our little world was ice hockey. Colonel Smith has a different world. We, in the very small time period, I think we've found that our worlds are really small and really big at the same time. But again, I just wanted to thank you guys, because you guys are going to go on and be great people. You are great people, but you're going to do great things in the world. And I'm excited just to be attached to you. And whether that's the guys coming back, excited to watch you next year, the guys moving on into the working world, I'm extremely proud of you. And I wanted to just publicly say thank you for the leadership, for the way you treated me, and the way you represented the school, the program, and each other, on a continual basis.
If it's okay with you, I'd just like to give them an opportunity to say their final words, if that's okay. But I just want to take 30 seconds. Hey, just for the listeners, we are losing obviously some exceptional talent, and probably more importantly, just great human beings this year as they go out again into the wild. But wicked excited for what the guys that are coming back for the Norwich men's hockey team next year, and what they're going to bring, to the ice fight, if you will. So if you're someone who follows closely Norwich hockey, both men's and women's, I think it's going to be an exciting year. And I think the team is only going to get better, and they're going to learn, or at least learn from the lessons that these guys have identified. And so I just wanted to take an opportunity to say that, you know, it's exciting times ahead. And I think that just as long as guys like Tibbs and Coops and the juniors, sophomores, and soon to be freshmen that are coming to Norwich coming back, it's going to be a good culture and a good opportunity to win some more hockey games, if you will. So I'm going to go around the horn. I'm going to save Clark and Johnny for last, but Coop, any final words for what may be your first podcast ever?
Yeah, definitely first podcast, but I just wanted to thank you guys for the opportunity, for having us on. For Johnny, Clark, and Lou, I think thank you for making this place feel like home for me, welcoming me in as a naive little young kid who had never lived away from home before. So thank you for that. Cam, thank you for everything that you did for me, helping me grow as a player, as a person, giving me the opportunity to be a leader for the team, something I'll always be grateful for. All the conversations we had about me as a player and me as a communicator and me as a leader, I think are valuable and something I'll learn from and think back to forever. And then Colonel, I think thank you for welcoming me and my roommates and these guys into your home for dinner and giving us all the knowledge that you've learned over the years. That's all valuable stuff that I'm going to hold on to forever, even after hockey. And just in the real world, I think that's all huge knowledge and huge experience that I've gained. And I think I might have gone over my time here for thank yous. Thank you for everything, all of you guys on the Zoom call, even Tibbs. Like, I think I can speak for the two of us that it's all been very valuable knowledge and very valuable experiences that we're going to utilize and hang on to and think back to for the rest of our lives. So
Appreciate that, Coop. And just, there is no time limit whatsoever. One of the things that Coach and I just talked about, at least we probably talked about several times over the past several weeks, is so often someone leaves our lives, right? Either they leave our lives because they move away, they leave our lives, who knows, maybe something happened to them and they're just unfortunately no longer part of our lives. And we celebrate that person, right? We celebrate the experience, the impact that they had on us and all that sort of stuff. And so that's one of the things that we're trying to do with this video podcast is take the opportunity, to give a big thanks and to recognize people for just being awesome human beings. And that's why we had you guys on. But I just wanted to say that that's why we're doing what we're doing, is just not waiting until you guys have moved on and with your lives and say, oh yeah, remember these guys? Yeah, they were great. Well, it's easy to say that then, but I think it's better to do it now. So Tibbs.
Tough to follow. I appreciate you guys having us on too, but I would just speak directly to sort of Cam about, I mean, when I came here, I was walking into like a program. I study architecture here at Norwich, but I was walking into a program where like nobody had sort of done that before. So there were a lot of like question marks revolving around like if it was going to work, everything. And I just want to thank him for making it possible for me, because that like for me was a huge step in my career. I wanted that to work out really bad, and I think Cam played a huge role in allowing that to happen.
Awesome.
And then Colonel, I just appreciate everything that you've done for us. You've been just amazing human being, teaching us how to act properly all the time. Yeah. And then obviously you three. Love you guys.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'll start with Cam. Obviously, I've built a connection with, everyone in here, especially Carl Smith. But Cam, I didn't really talk to him much before coming here, and I think the last 4 years he's been one of the most like influential people in my life, and I've been grateful enough to wear leather the last 2 years. So we've had a lot of talks, and I've been able to go to Cam with a lot of things. It's been the tough season the last 2 years for me, so I've been able to talk to him about family stuff, my feeling, whatever it is, he's always there. So Cam, thank you for that. Colonel Smith, I can't thank you enough. For, thank you for being just you. My family loves you. We all love you, and whether it's those little notes those handwritten notes you give out to all of us, or whether it's inviting all of us over for supper, I know everyone really appreciates that, and it doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you for that. And obviously the guys. Hopefully, I'll be in touch with these four and the rest of the guys for a long time. I don't know when Clark will answer his phone, but I'll try to give him a call here and there. But obviously, the senior class and the younger classes have created some really great friendships over the last few years, and I've been really thankful for that. Thank you, Cam. Thank Colonel Smith. So thank you guys.
Appreciate it, Lou. Johnny, you still with us?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right.
Those are Those are tough to follow up. Yeah, I mean, for me, I didn't even know this place was a military school until 2 weeks before I came here. I didn't know we had an awesome rink or locker room or anything. I only knew Clark and Brian O'Mara were here. I knew, the guy we talked about earlier, Ryan Leonard. He was coming here. He's one of my buddies too, but I didn't know anybody else. I didn't know anything about the school. I was kind of in between here and trying to work it out Division 1, and I chose here over testing that out just because of how Cam treated me. My biggest moment, and I told him this a couple weeks ago actually, was I told him about an opportunity I had, and I was kind of worried he would be mad and tell me to kick rocks, and he actually told me to take it if that's what I thought I needed to do. The only thing Cam focused on was that I had to do what I thought was best for me, and whatever that was, he'd be happy with. And that made my decision really easy. Just the way he treated me, the way, obviously I only heard good things from Clark, who's known him for a while. So I knew that going into it too, but I came here sight unseen just based on how he treated me, and I wouldn't trade anything I've been through here, good or bad, to go anywhere else and do it over again. So thank you guys. Colonel, I was telling my dad this the other day. I don't know how you think we're interesting, but I'm very grateful. It's quite it's crazy to hear some stories, and it's cool and blows my mind that we compare things you've been through to things we're going through or things like that. So thank you for all your insight, and like these guys said, dinner and anything we needed, we knew we could call you. So thank you. And you four dummies, you make and have made, going to the ranks, seeing each other, just awesome. And I made friends for life here. So thanks, boys.
Clark?
Yeah, I guess that leaves me. Yeah, I've known Cam for 9 years, so I mean, I can't thank him enough for how he's treated me in that relationship and his belief in me. Like, I had a rough road coming to Norwich, and Cam was always somebody that cared for the person before the player. So, like, even though other people had given up on me or cut that relationship off because of on ice performance or whatever it might be, Cam was always there to care for me and respected me. And I think that, like he said it many times, like, the world can be, a tough place with people in leadership positions that maybe aren't as respectful, and him treating us with love and care and leading with love has in turn made us treat the people below us here or our followers with that same love. And hopefully when we go out into the world, we can take those things that Cam has made important to us and taught us that how much we love that, and hopefully we make the world a better place with those kind of philosophies and mindsets. And obviously, Colonel, like Johnny said, I think it's unbelievable, and I'm still in awe whenever we get to talk to you and work with you. And you gave us those bags for senior night, and I remember coming home and my parents were here, and I was explaining, how cool it was, and how awesome you were, and all this stuff. And you obviously are kind of from that same leadership tree in my eyes of caring for people and loving them and caring for them. So I can't thank you enough for the impact you made on me. And then obviously love these other four guys, and I would have loved to have won the big one in my time at Norwich. But I think looking back on it, I'm extremely proud of the culture we've built and the way we've treated people and carried ourselves as people. So
Thank you, Clark, very much. Thanks, gentlemen. The one thing I would be remiss if I didn't mention, especially for the guys that are leaving this year, and hopefully going forward, Coop and Tibbs, you guys can still stay on board. But you guys each and every year had the Cam Ellsworth task sheet of 1,000 line items for the Air Payton event, the memorial event, the pediatric, to support pediatric cancer, and just for Clark, Johnny, and Lou. When the final tally was done, you guys helped raise over $100,000 for pediatric cancer research, and that in a 4-year period of time, that is not an insignificant amount of money, and that's over 10 kids to get an opportunity, possibly a second chance at life. And I don't think that can be that's amazing. And I just wanted to say thanks. And I know Johnny also put a phenomenal amount of money into the to the raffle as well. And so I don't know where you're going to be next year, Johnny, but like I might fly you out just because the airline ticket is going to be less expensive than probably the amount of money that you're going to put in the coffers. But anyways, I just want to say thanks because you guys have been part of my healing process, just with the loss of Peyton and all that sort of stuff. And I appreciate it. And just you guys have been there year in and year out. And I know it's work, whether it's putting grills together or just, manning the course or doing whatever. But I just wanted to say thanks. And your guys' impact mattered. And I think that's just something that just speaks volumes to who you guys are, and really the hockey culture in general. It's something that just I don't take for granted. So thanks, Coach. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, obviously very humbling to hear the impact that I feel like I was just trying to be a good person to you guys, and the fact that you guys took it that well or whatever. I just, again, very humbling. And the fact that you associate that with the way you treat each other is humbling. And I think anybody that's been lucky enough to be part of a team aspires to have these kind of relationships, right? And again, I think anybody can have an idea. And I had an idea when I came here that that's the way I wanted to do this. It kind of led me to the first conversation with Colonel Smith. For you guys, I don't know that I've ever told you, but like we sat at one of the picnic tables, Johnny, the same picnic table you and I sat with at your freshman year is where I met Colonel Smith. And basically not knowing anything other than he kind of had a similar outlook on life. And the way he wanted to treat people. And I just asked him, and again, it was more for affirmation. Like, can you do this? Can you treat people this way and still have success? And part of it is yes, you can. And part of it is defining success appropriately. Right. And again, I'm extremely proud just to be a part of your guys' lives. So not that we meant to go down this road, but again, we're really thankful to have you guys represent this program, and for Tibbs and Coop and your group to continue on a great tradition and a culture with new leadership and taking all the good and learning new and making it better, right? It's got to continue to grow. Clark, you said it. We got to keep getting better. We got to keep growing, and that's your task now. So yeah, thank you. Thank you guys for the time and just, again, it's something that this is a really unique, people that don't know and haven't been around, very different for me to even share any of this stuff, right? Colonel Smith, your foundation, like we've talked about the pros and cons of trying to put it on up in lights, right? And what that could be. And at the same time, trying to teach these guys that, real service isn't to try to get any kind of recognition for it, right? We're doing it because it's the right thing. And so I think I have to do a better job of spreading that message. We're going to do a better job together of spreading that message to help more kids and more families. But yeah, so I just wanted to, again, say thank you. Didn't necessarily plan on it going this way. We're going to talk about a hockey season, but again, I think anybody out there would be, is going to enjoy learning that there's, 50-year-old, 40-year-old, and 20-year-old men that can have deep connections and feelings, and that can have positive impacts on those around you. So we'll sign off on that and look forward to seeing you guys soon. Again, truthfully love all you guys, and yeah, thanks for everything.